Hey, meaningful movers. Welcome back to Move and Read Me, the podcast where actions have meaning, words have meaning, and we open up the conversations to discover what's your next move. I'm your host, Krystal. In today's episode, I think we could do with a bit of penmanship. We all have a story. Let's work on that articulation where anyone, anywhere knows what we are about. But you know how it is and what we do. We need to set that theme, so let's go ahead and do that. The word of the day is narrative. I like to look at life as a series of events or several short stories in an anthology. Just peeks into our best of times and worst decisions. We wield this magical pen, defying all obstacles and crafting meaningful journeys. The important part of that is that we hold the pen. Well, that's enough of me talking. How about we introduce our guest? And there's no one better to do that than himself, Rand. Why don't you go ahead and give the people a bit of background about yourself and what you're going to share with us today?
Well, hi, Krystal. Thanks for having me as your guest. I'm delighted to be here because I think we've got a lot to talk about in terms of narrative. I recently published a book, Thriving, How to Create a Healthier, Happier, and More Prosperous Life. And that came after 3 decades of running my own firm. It's an investment banking firm. Part of the success of that firm, it was just named the best investment banking firm in San Francisco Bay Area for 2024, which is quite an accomplishment. I think that success came because there's a lot of integrity and a dial into my clients' objectives. It's all about service. And I think that's a really important message for your listeners. If you want to do a really good job, just show up with service in mind. Not yourself, not what you're going to get out of it, but what you're going to deliver. I've been a Scoutmaster, a Little League coach. I've served on 18 boards over many, many years, and I am a roll-up-your-sleeves conservationist on top of all that.
Yeah, look, okay, so I'm going to pull out 2 points in there, the roles that you talked about. That Scout Master, okay, that's a lot of work. I think I was just watching my husband with my oldest son doing that, and I was getting tired, so I definitely know that's a lot of work. And then the second one is the Little League coach. I've taken score, and I've been the dugout mom. And I'm telling you right now, that was a large commitment. So, and it is all about service. So that's great that you've applied both of those principles in all of your areas of accomplishment and contribution in both social and professional. So that's pretty cool. So let's talk about this book, Thriving. It's all about self-discovery and empowerment, right? And you've broken it up into 2 parts, striving and thriving. The first one is striving personally, which is all about building character. You want to take us through that?
Yeah, actually, there are 4 parts to the book, and they build on each other. The first part of the book is thriving personally. And as you say, it starts with building character. It's half the book. That's how foundational and important the first part of the book is, thriving personally. It covers money. It covers spirituality and religion. It covers gratitude. There's just a lot of things about managing yourself as well as building character. And having purpose, hugely important. So from there, I go into part 2, which is relationships with others, thriving with others. Then I go into thriving out in the world, which is a being of service, being charitable and philanthropic. And then I go into thriving by moving ever forward in life, which is all possible, but you have to decide who's going to be driving your vehicle. Are you going to be the one deciding how fast to go and when to stop and when to turn right and left? Who to invite on your bus? Very, very important as you go through life. And then also, it's harder to do, but you have to sometimes invite somebody off your bus.
Oh.
Your bus starts with people already on it.
Yeah.
These are components. People are loving the book. I've got a lot of quotes in it that tie into the points I'm making, and people say that's really a very cool thing. And so, it just adds a little bit of zing to the otherwise, sort of matter-of-fact parts of the book.
For sure. You know why I really like the first part? I like each one of these. I'm going to try to go through each one of them as far as how they relate to me personally, and hopefully that'll inspire others, the listeners here, to do the same. The thriving personally piece is about building your own character. And to me, that just translates to brand development, like personal brand development, not only in your personal life, but in your professional career and how you show up for others and the kind of reputation that you have, right? And I looked at this personally as, what do I want others to see me as? But not so much like what I want them to see me as, but how can I exude that to them so that they receive me in the way that I truly want to be seen? I mean, look, that took some deep self-reflection and self-examination. And you're right. It's good that it's that amount of the book takes on that, because majority of my life has been about creating who I want to be and deciding on who that is and making sure that it's who I want to be, not what fits who somebody else wants me to be. So if I'm married to my husband, or how the kind of mother, all those things, like what my kids want and everything like that, it really was about really owning myself. So how was that when you were writing that? Did you go through that all over again with yourself?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've been very self-aware for a very long time. It's paid such big dividends. But you're right, writing this book caused me to go back and revisit many, many, many of the themes in here. And when you start writing something, you begin to figure out what's kind of the gaps in it, or what's maybe inconsistent, or maybe something you're a little confused about. So it was a really great exercise, I must admit. One of the themes, and it ties back to what you were talking about before, Krystal, about narrative, is I believe we can design our own lives.
Mm-hmm.
I have done that. I think we can be the author of our own story, which is a little different than that. Being the author of your own story means that you can look back into your past and decide what's important, what you want to share with others, what you can edit, because you're the author, you can edit and you can actually delete. And going forward, you can figure out what are some of the options that are waiting for you and make them happen. So it's a very powerful way to approach life, and it makes it fun. If you're not stuck. Part of what I'm trying to inspire and encourage people to do is seize this enormous power that we all have, power to make the choices about how we spend our time and who we spend our time with, and including our feelings. A lot of people say, well, that's not really a choice. I said, oh yeah. And number one on top of this big long pile is being relentlessly positive.
Ooh, that's great. Great. Now, if I go to that second part, which is thriving with others. So to me, as soon as you said that, I thought about networking and collaboration. That's just the first thing that came up in my mind. And I'll tell you why. Because I was an introvert. I still am in certain respects, but in other realms, like what I'm doing now, podcasting, or if I'm teaching and hosting a workshop, or if I'm working with other individuals within my company, right? From a service-oriented perspective, I present like I'm an extrovert. So when I first started my career really early, I truly wanted to stay in my bubble. I did not want to invite anybody else into that space. I got to a point where I had to kind of step out. Like, it was to the point where I kind of just stalled in my career, in my personal life, because it was like, Krystal, you need to let other people in because you're a gift. It deserves to be shared with others. I was just so afraid of the damage that other people could, you know what I mean? Like, when you open yourself to be vulnerable to someone else, that's a scary thing. I don't want to have to deal with that. And it was just such a huge hurdle to overcome. Now, I'll admit, when I did overcome it, I became more resilient. I became stronger emotionally. And dealing with even just the fact that it was possible, that was okay. Because that was worth the risk to create a new connection and a new collaboration, right? And I got used to and comfortable with boundaries. And it just built back on thriving personally. It built onto my character because now I evolved into being greater at the things that I was the weakest at, I guess.
It's very well said. I think it's kind of like concentric circles. The relationship world starts with you, the relationship you have with yourself. That is the most important relationship you'll ever have in your life, the one with yourself. Part of that's the discovery process. I talk about being introverted. I'm introverted, and being introverted in an extroverted world takes some examination. Got to take a look at it. I talk about the back of my book has 75 books that I've read and really impacted me. And I have a paragraph on each of those books so people can read those. I say at the beginning, please don't be like me. Don't ignore the appendix. Read those paragraphs, and you may be satisfied with the paragraph, but you may say, no, I want to read the whole book now. One of those books is a book called Quiet by Susan Cain, and she talks about being introverted and how you deal with that in this world that we live in. Very, very helpful book. Very, very terrific. Well, once you're on top of yourself, and as you talked about, you have gifts, you understand who you are and what you have to contribute, then go out and have relationships, build relationships with other people. I had this amazing experience about 12 years ago. I woke up one morning and I said, wow, I'm having a great life. What could make it even better? And I said, right away, I said, having a few more deeper enduring relationships. Okay. I said, what will that take? I said, I have to be vulnerable. So a lot of people who, I was friends with thought, well, I was kind of doing really well in life, which is true, but that doesn't mean I didn't have questions, didn't mean I didn't have struggles. So I picked 6 friends. It happened to be they're all males. I do have a lot of female friends too. And I went to them realizing that I might not move the needle, but that I was going to share with them something I was a little anxious about, something I wanted to see if they could have some advice from me about. And I'm delighted 5 out of the 6 immediately had some great thoughts and started sharing vulnerabilities of their own. The one did not run away, scared, oh my gosh, what monster's been, popped out of the box. No, it just didn't move the needle. And I was prepared for that as well. That's okay. It's just totally fine. But I got much better relationships with 5 long-term friends. And, it's been fantastic. But I had to be vulnerable. That's really the point I'm making here. I had to be willing to say, I don't know it all. I'm not sure of something. I'm a little concerned about something. And it was marvelous. It just made me more attractive to them too.
For sure. So this book is this guide to thriving. It's really, truly meant to inspire and encourage people to move forward and transition versus getting unstuck. What do you mean when you say you get stuck?
Yeah. Well, life is just completely full of endings and beginnings. And in between those two are transitions, whether it's going on to the next level of school or changing companies, jobs, entering into a new big relationship, ending a relationship, retirement. And I don't use that word anymore. I try to use the word rewirement, because there's something coming up afterwards. So retirement is not the end of the story. It's just the end of one chapter of your book that you're the narrator of. So it's a really key thing to understand that transitions are part of life. And the more you understand who you are, the more you realize, hey, I'm really good at this, and I'm okay, or maybe not really okay with this part. And I need to work on that. To go into this next thing, I want to be excited. And so I need to work on those things and be honest. I mean, the only person really watching is you. So it's okay to be honest. Say, hey, I'm going to give myself an A on these 3 things, and I'm going to give myself a B minus, or even worse, on something else. Okay, what are you going to do about that? Create a plan. You can't create a plan if you don't really know what's going on, what's really happening. So that's a big part of it. Transitions can be fun. I think it goes through phases. The first part of a transition is, a little anxiety. Like, oh my gosh, I'm leaving something. I knew what it was. I was comfortable with it. And now I'm going to something I don't know much about at all. And you can be almost freaked out about all that. So you go from a period of a lot of discomfort to saying, okay, I'm now going to create a plan, to the point of having excitement and energy, so that you continue to be positive and look forward to, the next adventure. Life is a series of experiments. They don't all work out. That's okay. Just keep trying. Keep pushing forward.
For sure. Now, your third point here, thriving out in the world. I am thinking of this and I'm kind of like, man. So once we build that character and then we've allowed these individuals to come in, when we say thriving out in the world, what is the juice of this?
Yeah. Well, I have 2 chapters in that section of the book. One is about doing something with your talent and your skills and the huge energy that you have to help somebody else. Maybe it's at school. Maybe it's at the, on the ball field. Maybe it's at some organization you belong to. Maybe it's a religious organization or something. Show up and say, how can I help? Look around. What can I do to help? Maybe it's an official position. Maybe it's unofficial. That's fine. Being on a lot of boards for a lot of years, I see how impactful that can be. And there are times when you need to move on. You've delivered your goodies, and it's time for you to say, I'm going to leave the seat open for the next person who's got maybe different perspective, which could be good. It's being of service in that way. And it could be just in the neighborhood. Again, just, hey, the neighbor coming back from whatever, the hospital, and going to need a little extra help. I can go there, knock on the door and say, hey, I'm going shopping. Can I pick you up something? Or I'm cooking up something. Can I bring you some of that yummy stuff? I think you're going to like it. It's just being that kind of person. So that's one part. The other part is doing something financially. There's two words here. One is charity and the other is philanthropy. Charity is kind of taking care of the squeaky wheel. Somebody's hungry. Somebody needs something. And what are you going to do about that? If you know them, that's one thing. But if you don't know them, they're still there. So see if you can pitch in. It could be just a little bit of money. And the other is the philanthropy is trying to get to the root cause of whatever is creating that dislocation for maybe a lot of people. That goes well past charity to we might need some new laws. We might need some new organizations. We might need, new approaches altogether. And so being involved at that level is also something to consider. That's being out in the world. Being out in the world when you're physically healthy and when you're emotionally healthy, you can create an integrated life. All the things I've done, people say, how could you're running a company, you're working on all these big transactions and you've got kids and you've got a mortgage and you got a wife for, a long, long time. She's been great. How do you manage to also do these other things? And I said, because they're integrated in my philosophy of life. I'm doing work that I love to do. I'm bringing me to the table. I've got my radar out. If they don't need me, I don't push myself on it. But I'm there to be of service with humor and openness and integrity. It just builds. I get more energy. Sometimes a little scary. I say, I don't know how I'm going to get to sleep tonight. I need to, but I'm so fired up.
Yeah. Man, this is so cool. So the first part that you mentioned to me, it was great. And I was just thinking about this the other day. I'm part of an organization and I want to contribute there. But where I am now with my life and with my children, it's too much. And I felt so bad that I was having to tell them no, or having to tell them, you gotta wait until almost I'm serious, 10 years until I am done getting my kids through their extracurricular activities so that I can be present and be there with them and enjoy this moment, because I don't want to relive this time in their lives and all I have are their stories of how that activity went. So instead of not going to my son's baseball game, all I have is the story of him telling me how it went, versus me actually being there and cheering him on. Same thing with my son, oldest, is getting ready for prom and all those other kind of things. I want to be there for those things. And I've had other people ask me, how do you do all that you do? And it's well, I enjoy it. So it doesn't necessarily take up as much time as it normally would for someone who feels like they're being forced to do something that they're not necessarily interested in. And then I prioritize.
Sounds really good. I mean, Gandhi said 1 and 1 is 11. You hold up your fingers, 1 and 1 is 11. And what I just heard you say is you could be with your kids, which is a high priority, and be there in the dugout. Mm-hmm. So you get both. And your son sees you doing that, being in that role, being the great person you are, and you're seeing other of the people that he's playing with, that he's on the team with. So you have a better sense of the world he's living in. This is magical stuff. 1 and 1 is 11. So you, instead of sitting home or whatever, you're out there. You're out there with your kid, with your family. It's a really good thing.
For sure. And I like how you mentioned also the movement of how you want to contribute, like how you mentioned the loss piece. So I'm not super duper into the political thing, but my husband is. And I remember, oh my God, this was probably 4 or 5 years ago, where he came and he said, I was thinking about running for I don't know, whatever, council or mayor or something like that. And I was like, don't do it. Because I was scared and he didn't do it. And I feel so bad. And I was just honey, I felt like I wasn't ready. And I felt like I impacted his desire to thrive in the world where he wanted to go. Do you have any, comment on that?
Well, I think in general, our society is not very good at support, and it's not very good at feedback. They're different, they're related, they intersect. Think about it. When's the last time you got some really great constructive feedback? Somebody who's been watching you closely, who cares about you, has your best interests involved, not being, mean, but says, hey, Krystal, you did a good job, and I think you could do even better. Can I share some thoughts with you about that? Well, what are you going to say? No, I don't want to hear any thoughts about how I can get better. I mean, you got to be pretty lame, unless the person who's sharing isn't really very honest and is just being mean or critical. But if it's constructive, you kind of want to hear it. And if it's presented that way, I just laid it out, that's a good thing. Feedback's good. And friends often don't want to give feedback. A spouse sometimes doesn't know, treading on little eggshells, not sure what to say. They tried it before, it didn't work, so they don't want to try it again. So feedback's one thing that's really important. And support is another. I see that with a lot of parents. I've had a lot of experiences as Scoutmaster and Little League coach and my own two fantastic kids. The whole issue of support. What does that look like? And I'm coming up on tonight. It's Halloween today. I know the broadcast won't come out on Halloween, but it's our 46th Halloween together, my wife and me.
Oh.
That's a lot of mileage. It's a lot of candy. A lot of costumes. So what does support look like in general? Well, a lot of people think that support is giving advice. You hear your kid struggling with something and you just jump right in, both feet, saying, oh, here's what would be really good for you to do. Well, sometimes that's what they need. But often what they need to do is be asked some questions. How are you feeling? How are you approaching this? Is this something that's important to you? And listen hard to the answers and maybe follow up with another question that just sheds more light onto whatever their issue is. At the right time, they may say, do you have any suggestions for me? But that only comes after there's this conversation where they're sharing. They're really explaining what's going on. This whole issue of asking questions, of clarifying what's going on, is enormously important in building relationships, in building support. And support does not just show up automatically. Sometimes you got to ask for it. Sometimes you got to say, and the support I need is this kind of support. I don't want advice. I want you to listen. I want you to be a sounding board. I want you to listen not just to my thoughts, but also my feelings. Maybe you can help me clarify my feelings. This is a jumble right now.
Yeah, that's good.
That's support. That's big time support.
For sure, for sure. So real quickly, I want to ask you this last question here, but choices. You mentioned that we all choose. Why is that so important?
I think it's at the heart of living a thriving life. When you can see clearly, which is its own challenge sometimes, to see something clearly. And you can say, well, what are my choices? How am I feeling? How am I thinking? What's going on? What's going on with me? What's going on with the situation, other people? And then you say, okay, what are my choices here? Do I want to feel this way? Do I want to feel upset? Do I want to feel positive, or do I want to feel kind of angry and disappointed? Is that going to help me? How do I want to be spending my time? I'm working this, I'm working that, I'm doing that. Am I carving out enough time for me to relax, to take the walk by myself, to kind of dial into what I think is the essence of spirituality, which is being in awe and being humble? Am I taking time to be that, to take and do that? So making choices around how you spend time and who you spend time with. If you take a look at who you're spending time with, it's been said many times, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Well, if you say, okay, I'm spending time with these 5 people, are you the smartest person you're spending time with? Are you the funniest person? Are you the kindest person? Well, if so, maybe you need to add some more people, because they can teach you. They can show you that there's more to you. Who wants to be the smartest person in the room? That's right. So hard to learn when that's going on. So a choice around how you spend your time, who you spend your time with, and your feelings. And when you own that, you can be on the path to thriving.
For sure. Well, you dropped a whole lot for us, so I hate to ask you to summarize these, but do you have any golden nuggets you want to just add some ketchup to recap?
Well, I'm going to share 3 more little bits. One is all this takes grit. Grit is one of the 7 things that studies have shown lead to life satisfaction and achievement. If you don't have grit, something comes up and it's going to mow you down. You got to be able to get back up. It doesn't count how many times you get knocked down. It counts how many times you get back up. That's grit. I encourage everybody to sort of reach in deep, get the support if you need it, and have grit. Another is to smile. Oh my gosh, when you smile, people are coming up to me all the time. I'm thinking, and sometimes they say, oh, I know about your book, or I met you 3 years ago, you may not remember. And I go, well, I do. And I mention their name and they go, wow, that's blowing me away. But having a smile is such an invitation. It's a way of saying hello and life's just fine. So a smile is huge. And it's an easy thing to put on.
Absolutely.
It doesn't cost money. Even if you have crooked teeth, you can still smile. It's okay. And then the last thing, Krystal, I just want to leave with is, what kind of person do you want to be? I talk about this when I do public speaking. I have a couple of posters. One is, what kind of pirate do you want to be? Do you want to treasure your possessions, or do you want to treasure your relationships? It's a choice. It's a choice. Not that you can't have both, but what are you really focused on? And a lot of people are all about money, and that's not success. Money alone is not success. Relationships has to be part of it, and the relationship with yourself has to be part of that. So I go down this path of, what kind of person do you want to be? And I say, I want to be the kind of person where if somebody said something bad about me, nobody would believe it.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, I don't think that would have been the case 10, 20 years ago. Somebody would have said something bad about me. It probably would have been true. I would have probably agreed. But I'm trying to be this person where, that first of all, the person wouldn't say it at all. But then if somebody did say something, people would say, that's just simply not who he is. You got it wrong. So that means being kind and being respectful and being generous and performing acts of loving kindness. People say, you've lived in Northern California for a long time. You're turning kind of weird. I say, no, I'm just oozing love.
Very good. Very cool. That's the episode today. As an author, I can definitely relate to shaping your story, character development, plot planning, and the setting. What's interesting is when you reread your own story in third person, you can see where you can make some edits or throw in a comment somewhere. Make sure to incorporate those redesigns into your sequel. It truly is a success story, and don't you ever forget it. I truly appreciate Rand for sharing his guide to thriving, which stages in striving and thriving have hit home with you. Even if you feel like you've got the thrive vibe on point, I love to hear how you've made the choice to get unstuck and move forward. I love it all, and so will someone else. Before I let you go, Rand, why don't you go ahead and remind the people who you are, where they can find your resources, or reach out to you.
Thanks, Krystal. It's been great being with you today. People can reach me by going to my book website, which is www.randselig.com, R-A-N-D-S as in Sam, E-L-I-G.com. There's a lot about me and the book, some amazing testimonials. There's a download of 40 of my favorite quotes from the book. People say they just love those. It's organized by chapters. So if there's one particular chapter or two that then you'll have a group of quotes that you can do. You can connect with me if you want to have a question or you want to invite me to something. That's all there. And you certainly can order the book there.
Fantastic. I'll make sure to include all of Rand's resources and connections in the episode description, as well as on my website's resources page, movingwithmeaning.com. Make sure you guys subscribe to the show, Moving With Meaning, the podcast, and tap that alert bell so you know when these episodes drop. I am on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and YouTube Music. Please share, like, repost, and follow. Tag someone. We are creating a community. Quick housekeeping before you go. Follow me on Instagram at movingwithmeaning82 and on Pinterest at Author KB Clark. Also, connect with me on LinkedIn. I do dabble in TikTok at Krystal B. Clark. My Etsy store has some handy-dandy digital downloads. Lastly, run over to my YouTube channel and have a look or two. Links are in the episode. Alrighty. I'm Krystal on Moving With Meaning, the podcast, reminding you to take it one step at a time. All moves have meaning. Check y'all later.